This is Super Yacht News with Heesen. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So, if you've been watching the videos since I started posting about the Russian sanctions, you probably remember a story about a yacht called Galactica SuperNova. So Galactica SuperNova was in Tivat in Montenegro, and it was right at the beginning when the sanctions first started, 2nd of March. The vessel left Tivat and headed south. And just as the vessel was outside of Montenegro, poof, disappeared. And in listed terms of AIS, and the vessel stopped broadcasting the AIS and vanished. Now, we managed to track that vessel eventually to Turkey. Now, this was before Turkey became popular with the Russian superyachts. But we managed to track the vessel there and got some photographs from a subscriber. And the vessel, as far as I know, is still in Turkey right now, and also is still not broadcasting AIS, even though it's a requirement by international maritime law to do that for a passenger vessel, regardless of size. Galactica SuperNova was built by Heesen Yachts in the Netherlands and is owned by Ep84. So another yacht that we featured a few months ago, this was before the Russian sanctions, was a vessel called Motor Yacht Galactica. Now you might remember this video. The vessel, as with most vessels that are built in the Netherlands, they build them inland and then they have to navigate some narrow rivers and canals to get out to the open ocean. And in this particular instance with Galactica, she was the largest vessel that Heesen had built, and the very top of the vessel wasn't able to be put on until the vessel navigated all of these bridges. But the vessel become unstuck when it got to one of the final bridges, and the water level there was unusually high, and the vessel was blocked, and they had to try again the next day. Well, that vessel was also built by Heesen, and that vessel is also owned by Ep84. So Heesen Yachts was formed in 1978 when Franz Heesen bought out a company called Striker Boats. Now, originally he purchased the property with the idea of building something else there, but eventually decided to keep with the boat building, and it became Heesen Yachts. In the early 2000s, Franz Heesen sold the company to Ep84. The company is formerly owned by a company called Morsel and is based in Cyprus, but Ep84 owns that company, and he was actually the CEO of Heesen Yachts until April, when he resigned because he was placed on the sanctions list in the UK and in Australia. So Ep84 made his money from the second largest oil company in Russia called Lukoil, and he's estimated to be worth around $20 billion. That's according to the Guardian newspaper anyway. As a result of Mr. Ep84 being put on the UK sanctions, Heesen Yachts is having some problems. So they get a lot of supplies, like a lot of yachts. They get supplies from British companies, a lot of electronics, a lot of engines, things like that, parts are supplied by UK companies. As an example, Rolls-Royce makes engines for Heesen, and they are unable to supply Heesen currently with any equipment. Now, why is this? This is because Mr. Ep84 is the owner of Heesen and he's under UK sanctions. It makes it illegal for UK companies to do business with him. Now, he resigned in April from the CEO position, but he is still considered to be the ultimate beneficial owner of Heesen Yachts, and therefore a lot of these companies are now unable to do business with Heesen. This is creating problems for Heesen, obviously, and it means that they're unable to finish some of the work that they're currently doing. A number of our suppliers are bound by UK laws, and as a result, some of them are unable to meet their obligations, said a spokesperson for Heesen. Could this be the first shipyard to start to have financial problems as a direct result of these sanctions? Well, according to the company, this bankruptcy is not immediately a problem. A spokeswoman said Heesen, which has about 1,000 employees in the Netherlands, is financially healthy. If they can't get parts, for instance, the yacht, at a certain point of the production, engines are installed, but they still require Rolls-Royce for parts or for technology, for software to run the equipment, or technical expertise. And as a result of those sanctions, they're not allowed to supply any of that currently. So those vessels are in a real problem if there are vessels in that state where they can no longer get that equipment. It's not like you can just whip the engines out and put new engines in, right? Because first of all, the financial ramifications of that, and secondly, many of these yachts, the engines are fitted in the build phase before the vessel is put together, and you can't take an engine out, not at least in one piece. So we'll watch this space, but that is not a good sign for Heesen yachts. Hopefully it won't be a problem like they've said. All right, guys, moving on to the next story. So we have an update from Fiji. If you remember, motor yacht Amadea travelled over from Mexico after hiding out in the Caribbean. Travelled to Montenegro in Mexico, headed down to Fiji. The official story was that after Fiji, they were going to the Philippines for a dry dock period, but that was probably a cover story for the location was probably going to be Vladivostok in Russia. But the vessel, as soon as the vessel arrived in Fiji, the vessel was seized. Now, the Americans, the United States, they are trying to seize that vessel, and they almost got to the point where they could sail away that vessel. They actually got their people on board. The judge in the High Court in Fiji had ruled that the Americans could take the vessel, and the lawyer who represents Milmarine, the company that officially owns this vessel, he put in for a temporary stay of the order, which basically means to pause anything being acted from that decision. And that was rejected on the Thursday. And that was it. Everyone thought that was it. Half of the crew left the vessel. The Americans came on board. But then on the Friday, the judge agreed to enforce a stay. Now, this is very unusual. And for the Fijian prosecutor said, Mr. Pride, his name was, he said that granting of the stay order on an ex parte basis was irregular. Ex parte basically means that the prosecutor was not there when this was agreed to by the judge. And he said it's extremely unusual for the Court of Appeal to grant ex parte orders. He said on last Friday, we had a judgment in the High Court rejecting an application of stay. But then very quickly on Friday, an ex parte application is entertained to stay, and there is simply no reason for my office to not have been involved, and the matter should have been put on an inter parte basis. In other words, there was no reason to keep us out of the loop, and we should have been involved while that decision was being made. And he said, there is frankly, this is Mr. Pride, the prosecutor, he said, there is frankly no excuse for that, my lord, because my learned friend knew this, and in fact, the affidavit from his law clerk was drafted 2 hours before the judgment in the High Court. The next court date will be on the 18th of May, and the temporary stay order has been extended until then. One of the interesting things about this is the reason why they were talking in court again is costing the Fijian government approximately 1 million Fijian dollars per week. So that's $640,000 a week to keep that vessel. So Mr. Pride, the prosecutor, said that the government has to foot an $83,000 per day bill for Amadea to stay at Lautoka. Now, I can only assume, I'm not exactly sure what that bill is for, but it is a commercial port, and I can only assume that the port is charging the vessel that money to stay in that port, at that berth in that port, and it's costing the Fijian government $640,000 per week to keep that vessel there. So it's obviously in their interests to get this settled as soon as possible, because Fiji is not, is not a massive country. It's just a small island nation. Okay, guys, and one last thing. You'll remember after Flying Fox was allowed to leave Dominican Republic, She quickly, she did a loop around the island. She headed east, and I quickly said that I think that she's going to Turkey. As she was crossing the Atlantic, a destination in AIS said Palma de Mallorca. And I said at the time, there's no way that that vessel is going to Palma de Mallorca, because that's where Tango was seized. They'd almost been seized in Dominican Republic. They were arrested there for a month. The destination in AIS was changed to TBC, to be confirmed, and the vessel went through the Mediterranean. I thought it might stop in Tunisia for fuel, but with it being a massive 136 meter super yacht, probably had plenty of fuel on board, and the vessel continued all the way to Turkey. So she did go to Turkey, and she's now in Bodrum. She's at anchor, and so another vessel has headed to Turkey, another Russian vessel. Now, why would that vessel go to Turkey? Now, that vessel, must remember though, that the owner of the vessel is not under any sanctions for any of the countries that are sanctioning people, not under any sanctions. So that technically they're free to go wherever they want, right? But obviously the owner is worried that the vessel could get seized somewhere else, so they've gone to a safe haven for now anyway. But anyway, that's the last story I've got tonight, guys. Let me know what you think of the stories. Let me know what you think about that money that it's costing the Fijian government. If you've got any more information on that, I would love to know. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the little bell so you get all the notifications for future videos. All right, guys, catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.